Welcome, Banana Dynasty League. It is I, your commissioner, Max Mosier, back here again to recap Week 3 and preview Week 4 with you. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, know that now that I have a win, I officially am back. And it feels good to be back in the driver's seat. Today, also in the driver's seat, getting his first win of the season, it is none other than Saquon Doe's team. Who knows?
Like
Saquon,
you know.
I even mispronounce team names. It's Isaac Edlund. As he takes a sip of his coffee, sorry.
Glad to be here. Glad to finally get our first dub of the year. It's been honestly like a lot of people say this is cheating on the Banana Dynasty League, but the first 2 weeks of the season across all 3 of my fantasy teams, I was 0-6. So it's been a rough start to this year. So
to those people, Isaac, I would say to you, they can go away. Those people need to get over it. And I'm calling Mark out when I say that.
I agree.
Those people need to go away.
Said.
Fantasy football for everyone. That's ridiculous. We're going to break down Week 3, talking about Week 4. But before we do that, Isaac, we're unveiling an official new category today. An official new statistic is being added to the overall spreadsheet. You can always see these stats on the overall spreadsheet. They're updated weekly. In fact, I just updated them now, so I need to just document it that it's been updated. Okay, so Week 3, it's officially been updated. We have the official hashtag Crown Climb stat. This is going to go to the person. This is going to be a special award given out at the end of the year for the individual who gets their biscuits buttered the most. Isaac, thinking out loud, who do you think is on this list already from weeks 1 through 3?
From weeks 1 through 3.
This week's was Robbie. Do you remember who the other two
Robbie. were? I don't even remember. What were they? Because
we're gonna keep track of this for the people at home. So. Jordan was week 1. Nick was week 2. Week 2. So we will keep track of this throughout the year.
Honestly, I feel like Jordan and Nick are probably gonna be duking it out for that all year.
I sure hope so. I mean, I'm not trying to speak in hyperbole when I say nothing would please me more. I mean, obviously winning a championship would please me more. But if I'm not going to win a title, nothing would please me more than to see Jordan in that
What
spot.
would you rather do? Win a championship or see Jardine do a punishment?
Oh, gosh. It's a really good question. I think it's still rather win. However, Jordan will be the most dramatic with the blender.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait for Jordan.
And watching Nick do the wings this last year, I really just don't want him to lose. Just because I think Nick's got a great poker face.
Right, he does, and it wouldn't be as even with Zane. It was pretty exciting to watch, and Zane just downed that thing like no problems. But it was still really exciting to watch. He made it dramatic. It would not be dramatic with Nick. He would just be like, "All right,
yeah,
chug it down, good," and then we'd all be like, "That's it, okay."
Right. With Jordan, you're going to get this level of he's drama that's unparalleled.
Going to make it through the whole, like, Zane chugged it all in one shot.
Sure.
Absolutely zero chance Jardine is able to do that.
Yeah. The blender comes for everybody at some point, right? Yes. I think that's just kind of how this works.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's your crown climb, hashtag crown climb race. Isaac, it sounds like an early favorite for you. You're picking Jordan. We'll see. I think Vegas would take Nick. I think there's an argument to be made that Elliott could be in there as well. Mm-hmm. If Tua were to struggle, then I could see Robbie's situation turning dire that he would be in this. But I think this week was just a fluke for Robbie. But we'll get through that. Let's talk about this week's.
Okay, before we jump into this, is probably something you don't have on the spreadsheet as of right now, but maybe something that we can work on adding. Do you have the previous years of how many times people got biscuits buttered?
I have the all-time buttered biscuits since we started tracking. We started tracking this stat last year.
Okay.
So we did not go back and look at games up to that. This is a established 2021 statistic. So we only have 2 years of data on this. However, I can tell you that the person that has gotten their biscuits buttered the most has been Elliott with 10 times.
Over the course of last year and this year.
Correct. But the worst ratio, the best ratio is me. I've buttered 9 biscuits. I've never had my biscuits buttered. And then the other person who has the worst ratio is Robbie. He has never buttered anybody's biscuits. He has only
Wow.
been buttered 9 times.
9 times. Wow.
9 times.
9 times. That's way more than I thought for
Yeah,
Robbie.
it's a lot.
And he's never buttered anybody's biscuits.
Never.
Wow.
Nick has only buttered somebody's
Shocking.
biscuits 1 time. Isaac, you've buttered somebody's biscuits twice. You're 2-2 in the category. Zane surprisingly got his biscuits buttered for the first time last year. I remember going into last season, he didn't have one. He had never been buttered, but he had it happen 1 time because that was surprising. That was kind of our way of saying Zane's mid. Elliot's 3-10. Zach is 2-3. Mark is 4-4. Jordan, he just got his 4th this week, by the way. Jordan 5-6. Keegan 5-2. Robert, Joey, and I all with 9. But Joey and Robert have both experienced a biscuits buttered situation twice. So something to look out for in the coming weeks. These
I'm
stats are
about this new award.
I mean, some people might call these statistics more important than any other stat.
I'd throw my hat into the ring. I'd say
there are some in our league that would categorize these as the best. So let's talk about last week's games real quick. The game of the week was Robert versus Keegan, and it did not disappoint. However, Robert comes out with the victory 140-130 and change for both of them. But the 2 big stories here are this. I'm sorry, 3 big stories. The first one is the league champion gets his first loss. Keegan goes to 2-1. The second story is Robert looks to be back, and Devin Singletary has a tremendous game. But the third story, and this is the drama story, is Robert did not do the your next bit. Joey and Mark essentially eradicate that bit. Robert has yet to really say anything, has said several times, Keegan, you're lucky I'm not talking trash. What is your take on this, Isaac? You're not really a drama-filled person. Could you bring some insight from a perspective of somebody who doesn't care about this stuff or is just not thinking about it because you're saving lives in the real life world?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I believe I was at work when all this was going down, whatever that was, about a week and a half ago. I remember all these messages going off. I went to the group chat and I tried to scroll up and get to the what started all this, and I just lost all interest. Like, it wasn't a fun argument. It was like, this is boring. I don't care either way about this. So I was like, guys, I realize that this is a point of contention for you for some reason, but this is boring and I don't care about it. So I'm out. See you guys.
There you go. There you
so
go.
that was my take on the controversy. The second thing I have to say is that I'm partially on Robert's side because Joey's bits are the worst in the league. Solely for that fact, I don't even care what the argument was about. Joey's bits are terrible. So I'm almost on Robert's side solely for that reason. But also, it very much seems like there is some deep-seated feelings for Robert in this argument. So don't know again what that's about. Don't really care. I do enjoy the Your Knicks bits, so I'm a little sad about that. Honestly, I don't think Robert can hold out for very long. I think he's going to start up doing it again in the next couple weeks here. We'll just see how it goes, but yeah, a little sad to see that go, because that's a good running bit in the Banana Dynasty League. So
well, and here's the other part, right? I think a trend is appearing here. One, that's back-to-back weeks our guests have said, hey, I don't really think this is a good thing for the league, but if I have to pick a side, gun to my head, I'm picking Robert. The other thing is we're hearing a trend now, 2 different people saying, Joey, your bits are terrible. Yep. So that might be a consideration to pivot on the bit.
But I will say, I agree with Robbie from last week. I mean, if he sticks to his guns with this positivity thing throughout the whole year, I will commend him for doing that, because to stick with a terrible bit that nobody thinks is funny throughout an entire year, that's impressive. So
additionally, say he loses this week, a very big hypothetical because he's playing me, but he loses this week and doesn't do well, goes to 2-2, people start to go a little crazy.
That's true. Yep.
People started to do some crazy things. Yep. So
and
I think
the
Joey,
powerhouse that he's been over the past couple of years, him going downhill, and if he goes to a losing record eventually this year, that I think that would take a toll on him. I think it would. So we'll see if the positivity bit can stay positive throughout the
We'll see.
rest of the year. Yeah.
Robert beats Keegan. Yay for the league. Bad if you're Keegan from the perspective of Robert appears to be really good. And Brady didn't have a good day. Neither did Cook. Both had average days. I mean, average days across the board. 140
Mm-hmm.
kind of is for Robert this season. Not his best score, but he gets enough to get it done.
Yep.
Keegan gets a great night from Hurts again. Jalen Hurts appears to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy football right now. DeAndre Swift is going to be out for a couple weeks. How will Keegan pivot on that? He has depth, but can he keep pace with the other teams he's playing? Jamar Chase and Mixon are just not giving him what they gave him last year. And when they play the Jets, for those two to combine out with only 20 points, that just appears to be a difficult situation. I know preseason wise, Keegan thought Cortland Sutton was going to be special, and maybe he will down the stretch. But as of right now, Robert gets a great win, goes to 3-0 in very, very commanding fashion. Robert appears to be the favorite to take home the title right now. What were your thoughts from this game? Were you more surprised that Robert won, or were you more surprised that Keegan lost?
Uh, probably more surprised that Keegan lost. I wouldn't even call it subpar, but it's like below projection level is where Keegan is at. Um, not the greatest week for him, but certainly not the worst week for him either. I mean, it was a close match. Robert pulls out a game of the week game. It was a good game for him, and he turns out to be the powerhouse that we kind of always thought he was. But the thing is, I mean, you can be just like last year. You can be a powerhouse throughout the whole year and just have a bad week in the playoffs and get eliminated by the person that has the worst bits in the league. So anything can happen, and so we'll have to see how the rest of the season goes. Obviously, you'd rather be in Robert's position, getting that first round bye, as opposed to somebody who just sneaks into the playoffs because you've got more chance to be eliminated. But at the
It's
same
going to be a
time,
dogfight too, with
yeah,
Mark in the second spot behind him in his division, then
right,
Joey, then me. I mean, even you to an extent. Like you're certainly not that far behind. If other pieces can get going, Brian's house will be a duking fest.
hmm
The other thing that was said this week was Brian's house goes 6-0.
yeah,
So this game really represents kind of what happened this week. Brian's house, which all offseason has been touted, first 2 weeks was not showing what we thought they were going to be per se. But now they appear to be doing so with 3 teams above 500 versus only 2 for Mary's house. Let's transition to my game with Elliott. I win 128 to 108. I finally get the first win of the season. It was a little bit of a crunch time fear-based situation with Mariota and Patterson having stellar days and Murray not really doing as much. And they have I avoid essentially Atlanta getting bonus points, which is my big fear. And Elliott loses by 20 points. Do you think I'm in a panic situation, or is this Max is back on course? What are your thoughts?
no. Max, Max has never been in a panic situation. Max is in a panic situation of his own doing because his team is totally fine and he just freaked out because his team was 0-2. So that's your only panic situation. You
Nobody's
have
feeding into the bit. Okay.
no, no. It's
No.
you're fine. The bit that you are freaking out because your team is going to be in the Banana Bowl is garbage,
Stale.
stale. Yep, yep.
And
So
I'm like,
not surprising. I think your team is still. I'd say your team is still like probably top 6, mostly thinking that you're a playoff team at this point. And Elliott's team just has his starting roster is not awful, but he just doesn't have the depth to sustain a full season run and hopefully get out of Banana Bowl contention. But he just doesn't have it in him. So I mean, he beat me last week, so I can't really speak to I can't really trash him a whole lot. But
I mean, Elliott, what he's done with this roster from where it started is very
oh my
impressive.
gosh, yeah, no,
I do
his
think he could
roster
get,
was complete garbage
yes,
when he took over this team. So
he's going to get a chance to probably make a trade with some of these guys down the stretch, and I think he'll be able to capitalize on that for the future.
yeah,
I'm shocked he didn't play Stevenson and Williams. I mean, that's kind of the big takeaway for him is I'm shocked he didn't play them. I think numbers wise, it still wouldn't have mattered if he had played them in running back and flex. But I'm just shocked that he sat Jamal Williams. He obviously will not do that next week with DeAndre Swift being out. But Yeah, he's managed this team well. I think he would looking back would have changed some things. Obviously, I would have rather put Christian Kirk in. So both of us can play that mental game. But yeah, I mean, I think Elliott is in fine position to get some great steam rolling at the end of the season. And you never know, right? You sneak in, you never know. You never know. Give
Right.
yourself a shot.
Yep.
So
And I
Mark
mean,
gets
I would put him right around kind of the same level that Zane is at right now. Like he's above Nick and Jardine in my eyes for sure.
yeah, he's
Kind of
tier 5 or 6 or 5 right now. If we broke
right.
it into 6 tiers,
Yep. So
yeah, I'd say
I'd
he's
say
5.
he's right above them. He has a chance to be, like making it out of the Banana Bowl at this point. At this point, I'd love to see Jardine and Nick in the Banana Bowl. But
Oh gosh,
again,
I'd love
like
to
you
see
said,
Jardine and Zane. I think that'd be
oh my
great too.
gosh, that would be great too. To see a repeat Zane blender. Oh,
Well, and even
that would be so sweet.
Elliot is so dramatic too. He'd be great to
He would
watch
be a
in a
great
blender
person to
situation.
watch
Yeah,
through the
he'd be a
blender.
great
Right.
blender person
Yeah,
situation.
you're right.
Yeah, very underrated blender person. I'm rooting
Yep.
for. Yeah.
Agreed.
Let's transition to the buttered biscuits game of the week. Hashtag crown climb. Mark just absolutely eviscerates, just tears apart Robbie. Tua
Oof.
does come back, but the concussion situation is going to be something to monitor. David Montgomery scores 1.1, immediately exits the game. Logan Thomas does little to nothing for him comparison to last week where he scored a touchdown. Mike Williams did nothing. CH had a relatively decent day, and Waddle did the best he could. But the Chargers go -5.5 against Jacksonville. I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen.
Mhm.
Robbie's hometown hero, essentially, he loses that battle by 25 points to Mark. And it just bites him bad. 62, a season worst,
Oof.
and probably career wise, got to be a bottom 3 score for him.
Yeah,
Not his
no
best
doubt.
week when you're playing somebody who a lot of people have said is a team spooky, is the name of Mark's team that the league has named him. And Mark looks very good, Isaac.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Mark, this is among Mark's like kind of showing what he can do. I don't think he's at that top tier Robert Keegan where he can put up, 200 in a week, but he's definitely up there, and he is a spooky team to watch out for. If he has a decent week, he can put up, 150 plus for sure. So, and it just happened to be the worst week possible for Robbie. Like I mean, it was me last week. Like everybody on his team collectively pretty much laid an egg. And his Chargers D getting -5 points, just a recipe for disaster for
Well, and
Robbie.
again, in
So
our league with the new hashtag crown climb statistic,
hashtag ground climb.
you're going to not want to be in these situations if you're playing these bigger teams because now we're tracking these stats. The buttered
Exactly.
biscuits game of the week is going to play a factor down the stretch with this trophy we're going to give them. So I think this is going to hurt Robbie for a while. Trevor Lawrence sitting on the bench with 25. It's going to be interesting. Robbie now is going to have to choose between Tua and Trevor. I think sometimes
Right.
he'll lean on Tua. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he won't pivot from Tua, but if
Right. And
Tua
it's yeah,
continues
like
to be hurt, that's a
it's
problem.
you can't not play Tua after the week that he had last week where he puts
Sure.
up like 50 points. Like I mean
Especially when you
that
have his number one. When you have his number one receiver,
exactly.
that's nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it's not like he played the wrong people per se, but just unfortunate, just an unfortunate week for his whole team.
He's built some depth at quarterback, and that's for Robbie. That's a very good thing to consider long term.
Yeah.
Let's break down your game, 147-94 over Zane. This was another candidate for Butter Biscuits game of the week, Isaac. This was another strong candidate. If Robbie just didn't lay the absolute worst egg, you'd be that hashtag crown climb dot would go to
Hashtag
Zane,
ground climb.
who continues to struggle 0-3. I mean, just like, yes, you finally get on track. Lamar Jackson's having a historic start to the season with 38 points, basically 3 straight weeks of almost 40 points. And Marquise Brown finally shows up with 28 for you. Chase Edmonds and Kareem Hunt have been nice. But for Zane, I mean, just absolutely nothing at the running back position.
Yep.
15 points to the 24 you put up.
Yep.
Joe Burrow is no match for Lamar Jackson, and that's a recipe for disaster for Zane. Can't even beat a 6.8 performance from Kittle. And the flex was absolutely no hope as Barkley just absolutely tears Dallas apart on Monday night, fantasy wise. Yeah, I mean, the commentary here is this, guys. Zane is bad. He's going to be bad until he changes his strategy. We've beat that dead horse to death. But Zane, you can say you're built on hope all you want, but until you make blockbuster moves with somebody not named Keegan and make Keegan's team better and your team worse, you're not going to be respectable in this league. As for you, Isaac, this is a really great win. I really like Drake London too. I really, really like that pick. I think that was a very quiet pick, and I think for a long time, people are going to be jealous that you got that guy. Very nice.
Yep, and I mean that's what I was going for this past off season because my receivers have been just trash for several years now. So I was like, all right, we gotta fix this problem. I come in like I'm like pretty confident in my running back situation, and they've been, I'd say, above average throughout the season. But having Saquon,
Can't go wrong having Saquon.
he's the probably one of the shining star in my team. Obviously, the team namesake,
Sure.
living up to his name at this point. So
Big surprise of the week. I this is a surprise from my end. I had Zach winning this game last week. It's Nick winning 103-95. Zach just absolutely underperforms, and Nick overperforms in a way that is unheard of. And this is how this league is going to go, guys. Like, there's going to be weeks
mhm.
where if you don't put up the numbers, you're going to struggle. And Nick does find a way to win. He does lose Sterling Shepard in the process, who is out for the season, making a depleted roster even more depleted for Nick. He'll now need to lean on Robbie Anderson or Equinarius St. Brown. Maybe he tries to pivot Boyd back there and goes for running back in the flex. I don't know what Nick's going to do. As for Zach, is this panic time, Isaac?
I gotta believe that it is. Um, I feel like last year we were saying throughout the entire year that Zach's team was the boomer bust team. Like he could go for 90 points one week, and then the next week he would put up like 170. Like, and I haven't really even seen. I mean, we last week he was able 2 weeks ago, I should say, he was able to put up. I think it was like 140 or 150 in that range. But I think that's like his ceiling this season. I don't have a really high view of his team. He's got obviously Patrick Mahomes, who's going to put up numbers, almost every week. But beyond that, like he's got a starting lineup that I just don't trust any position to continue putting up numbers every week.
Right.
So yeah, I think he's in trouble, honestly. I don't think it's panic mode for him because I think he's good enough to stay out of the bottom, four teams of the league. But if he has a couple bad weeks around playoff time, he could very well be in that spot, competing to not drink the blender come playoff time. So
And I feel
tough
like
for him.
Zach also, here's the other part of Zach, is his team is fine long term. I don't think he's a blender person. I disagree with that narrative. I think like George Pickens, once he gets a quarterback, that guy's going to take off. Mike Evans was suspended this week.
Right. He had
He's
a couple
got
bad
Pierce.
things going for him
Pierce
this week
Pierce
too.
is the guy in Houston, so he picked up a stud there. He made an aggressive trade for Miles Sanders. Don't agree with it. Still don't really agree with it. But Zach said, I'm going to try to go get another running back because look, he scored double digits the last 2 weeks. And for running, and I mean, the attempts are there. He had 15 attempts against Washington. So
Right. He's getting
from
more
that
touches.
perspective, Zach isn't doing poorly. But if Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mike Evans are going to be out of your lineup, you're not going to win many games. I think you're going to struggle to win games. And I think it proved today in this with Nick. And um, yeah, I think Zach is fine. I don't agree that he's a blender contender.
I
I
don't think
also
he's a
don't think
perennial blender contender, but I
sure,
think
sure.
this year he
He's a
could be
7 or 8
good.
seed. Yeah, he's a 7 or 8 seed, and
Right.
if things were to happen, yeah. However, I also think I don't think it's panic time. That's what I'm saying. I think Zach is in a
No.
spot to still win. Yes, he beat me week one, so obviously I'm a little more biased towards that. But if he could do what he did week one against me, he could do that against anybody. And I think that is just saying a lot about him. Finally, Joey versus Jardine. Joey gets a win here. Neither of them really deserve it.
No.
107-92. Joey goes to 2-1, limping into the 2-1 spot, and Jordan just looks it's downward
He just
spiral.
has to be thankful that he played Jardine this week. Holy moly. I mean,
I
honestly, across
mean,
the board we had some lower
yeah.
scores this week, but still, like, to put up only 107 and come out with a win, you gotta be thankful for that. So
He needs to be very thankful he played Jordan. I mean, he
yeah.
just very minimal performance from his guys. I mean, the top score for Joey this week was a 17.9 performance from Kelsey on Thursday or on Sunday, excuse me. Whereas Jordan's best team essentially was CeeDee Lamb and his defense and Goff. Just not a good matchup for either of these guys. Yeah, I think Jordan is in a downward spiral, Isaac. I think this is kind of the opposite of Zach. I look at Jordan's situation, I'm like, it is bad. It is very, very bad.
I agree.
And will Jordan make the choice to flip for the future? Or will he hold because he was so aggressive with Connor in the preseason?
Yeah, that's that's a good question. I to be honest, I have a hard time seeing Jardine tank. I don't think he's the tanking type of guy. I don't think he has the guts to sell out for the season for the future. I think he's going to keep trying to win. And he's going to avoid this blender at all costs. Jardine does not want to do this blender.
Sure.
So I don't think he's going to go that direction. He's going to keep spinning it as this is a down season for him. He's going to come back next year. I think he's in trouble though. Like long term, his team is not good, man. I I think he's maybe not to that extent, but he's in the position that Brett was before he gave his team to Elliott.
That is a very fair comparison. I think
And
yeah.
it's not looking good, man, unless
No, not at
he
all.
is able to pull off some incredible picks over the next couple of years. I don't know if he's
He
going to
doesn't
be
have
able to turn
picks.
it around.
He doesn't have picks, Isaac. That's the other part. He doesn't have picks. It's the problem for Jordan is Jared Goff is not a long-term answer in our league. He's a band-aid for this year and maybe
Right.
next year.
Yeah, you're
Because the
actually right.
Lions
So
are
I'm
going to
looking
move
at his
on the
picks right now. He's got a first and a third in 2023. He doesn't have any 2024
no.
picks,
He's
and he's got his
he
2025. But like,
I mean,
he's
there's a very real
he's in trouble.
chance. I mean, if you're doing the Vegas odds for the clown punishment today, Jordan is in that race.
Mm-hmm.
He's an early favorite. Obviously, we're 1,000 days away from that, but that is
He's
we're
coming
going to
into
see.
his team is spiraling at the absolute worst time.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Isaac.
Absolute
In the
worst time.
context of our league, starting next year, you're going to see the aggression uptick because I mean, we don't talk about this enough in our league, but that clown one is going to be. I think there's about
It's going
10
to be a
people in
fight.
our league.
People are going to be fighting and clawing.
There's about 10 or 11 guys in our league that really don't want to do that. That really don't think that's worth it. And I think Jordan's one of those people. So I just make the point that Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, that's about all he's got. I mean AJ Dillon too, but like AJ Dillon in comparison to Aaron Jones is not the person to have.
Well, yeah, and you're playing that game of like, oh, do I start both of them? Do I start one
Sure.
of them? Which one do I start? Like that's a tough position to be in, and Jardine somehow manages to pick the wrong one on like 80% of games. So
Sure.
I don't have faith in his managerial ability to pull
Wow.
himself out of that.
You are not pulling punches on Jardine today.
No,
You
no,
are
I think
brutal on
Jardine is
Jordan.
bad. He's not
Oh
good.
man. This is gonna be a hard listen for Jordan. Hard listen. Yeah, I mean it's an early favorite, but I mean I'm serious. That's a very fair comparison, Isaac. Where Brett was at is where Jordan is. It is not looking good. He probably has to trade somebody by the end of this, and Connor's going to get little value. His best plays are CeeDee Lamb and Aaron Jones, and I don't know how much he's going to get for an aging Aaron Jones.
Play that he would have to do if he tanks is to start selling his team off for picks because he doesn't have any, which is obviously going to make him worse. And his rebuild is not going to take him out of this by the time the Clown Hotel rolls around. Like,
well, and that's the other thing. Nick played it perfectly. Nick will be where he needs to be by the Clown Hotel. Yes,
exactly. Yep.
Nick by 2025, Nick will be where he needs to be.
You're right.
Jordan appears
next year. Nick is absolute trash, but by the time the Clown Hotel rolls around, Nick is going to be middle of the road team trending up.
Or he can trade him. He can trade picks for somebody, right? Like that's the other part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's got plenty of them to maybe he starts sniping some off of Jardine's team because Jardine is getting desperate and starting to think about tanking. But
If we were
Again,
charting
I don't
people,
think he is that guy. I don't think he's going to tank. So
no,
we'll see.
he's not. You're absolutely right. His pride is too doggone high. In the context of a trajectory of a team, it's not like a straight line or a straight line down. It's like this. Is Joey's team going up or is Joey's team going down?
That's a really that's a really good question actually, because his team is. I feel like his team is a little hard to read. I think he's been on the uptick the last few years, and he's kind of plateaued at this point. I I think really he's probably going to start trending down at this point, but it's not a sharp decline. I don't think. Like I think he's going to be relevant in this league for a long time. I don't think he'll be a clown hotel team by the time that rolls around, but it's hard to say at this point because he's kind of like starting to hit that middle of the road, which he has been a high tier team
Sure.
for the past couple of years now. But I think he's like starting to kind of shift into that middle of the road team at this point of the season. So I don't know. We'll have to
One
find
note
out.
about Jordan before we move on to the next week. Cooper Rush is on Jordan's team. I think Cooper Rush is going to be playing for another team next year. So there's a chance that Cooper Rush could be a guy for Jordan, and that quarterback is a spot that he won't have to stress about that much if Cooper Rush can transition to who we think he could be.
Mhm.
3-0 to start your Cowboys debut. That's incredibly impressive because of how often the Cowboys play on primetime. So I think there is something to Cooper Rush for Jordan. I will give him that caveat. I just realistically, I think you and I are on the same page. I don't know how 3 years from now Jordan's team is like that much better with what he has.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be
I just
tough
don't see
for
it.
him to dig himself out of that hole.
Yeah. Real quick, let's talk through the all-time scores here. Elliot and I go to 5-5. We break even there. Robert against Keegan goes to 4-4 all time. Mark against Robbie. Mark is 8-1 all time against
Wow.
Robbie. 8-1. You and Zane go to 5-5 on your rubber match here. Nick versus Zachary. Nick goes to 6-4 against Zach, and then Joey against Jordan goes to 7-3 all time. We did have one shift on the all-time rankings. Nick moved above Elliot because he has less wins than Elliot. So Nick now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 all time. He is the 8th all time owner. Elliot moves back down to 9. Isaac, you are 2 games back from Zane going into that 11th spot all time. You got a little bit of work, but this could be your year. Zane could move to that all-time bottom. Could be that year. As is tradition on our show, the guest chooses the game of the week. So for week 4, Isaac, who are you going to be choosing for game of the week?
I got to take a quick peek here because I was kind of asked on the spur of the moment. So let's
yes.
Take a look. Oh. Yeah, so I think pretty much the no-brainer game of the week here is it's going to be Keegan and Mark.
Keegan and Mark is fascinating.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. One, last year in the championship, Keegan comes out with a victory over Mark. Previous year, Mark comes out over championship over Joey in dramatic fashion. These two, complete. Yep. But here's the thing: Mark had only beaten Keegan last year in the title. Mark is 1-6 all time against Keegan.
That is
so. It's just the way the ball's bounced with this matchup. This is a really, really big matchup for the context of where this league moves forward. Because if Mark wins, Keegan now is 2 games behind the 1 seed because Robert is probably favored to win his game. He plays Nick this week. We'll talk about that in a bit, but Robert's going to be the favorite in that game. You're looking at 2 4-0 teams with Keegan 2 games back. Now, the best Keegan can probably realistically do mathematically would be the 2 seed. Assuming that Robbie doesn't get on a roll, Zach doesn't get on a roll, or that's about it.
What I was going to say. If Keegan loses this match, I mean, Mary's house, I think by far Keegan is the best team in Mary's house, but
sure,
he would be right there with everybody else in Mary's house. Like
And
it's
there's
up
an
for
argument to be
grabs at
made
that
that
point.
Robbie's going to beat Elliott this week. There's an
Yeah,
argument to be made. It's a very close matchup analytically, but if Robbie wins that game, Keegan loses his game, and Mark wins this game, and Robert wins his game, now all of a sudden you're looking at 3 teams that are above him. If Joey wins, he would go to 3-1. He'd be a game above it. He'd be right on pace with Keegan. I
right.
just make more of a point that this is probably the game of the year for Keegan
Yeah,
from
so
from
far,
a
yeah,
from a seeding perspective. Mark and Robert, they both got to win no matter what because they're kind of they're worried about each other more than they are Keegan. Keegan has to worry about if he wants that 1 seed to have the best possible chance to win this thing. He's going to have to win these games. And he is favored. 133 to 127 is the current matchup. But with all due respect, with the running back play, I don't think I really don't know if I have a very difficult time you telling me Derrick Henry is going to not outscore Najee Harris with the foot issues he's had. I know he's playing the Jets. That's just that doesn't seem legitimate to me. It also doesn't feel legitimate that Amari Cooper is going to do worse than Deontay Johnson. And the way that Kyle Pitts has played this year, I think Knox could definitely outperform. I'm taking Mark because the matchups clearly show, in my opinion, in my perspective, that he's going to win this thing. DK Metcalf is going against a very soft Detroit team. Those are the kinds of games that Mark can really boom or bust. Cooper's going against a soft Atlanta team. I just think this game is primed for Mark to win. And Keegan, in particular on Thursday night, this is where this game is going to be won or lost for Keegan, in my opinion. If Jamar Chase and Mixon don't combine for at least 40 points, good freaking luck against Mark. That's all I have to say. I just
yep.
think, I really think this one's Mark's favor. I really like Mark in this. I'm taking Mark.
I am going to go the opposite direction here. I think this is going to be a very high scoring, very close game, but I'm going to take Keegan. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Thursday night matchup is going to be boom or bust. It's going to be a make it or break it game for Keegan. I think just with how Miami's games have been going, this is going to be a high scoring like shootout between Cincinnati and Miami. And if that happens, I think Keegan's going to be taking this one in a close matchup.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if I agree with you on the high scoring. I don't think Cincinnati can keep pace with Miami.
I mean, they showed that they can do it last year. They've obviously had offensive line issues since last year, but I
Yeah.
think that this can be for sure a high scoring matchup.
Yeah,
And if it
yes,
is,
you are correct. The game flow would say 2 high scoring offenses, they could put up a lot of points.
right, right.
I'm more so saying I don't believe in Cincinnati this year.
They haven't shown it yet. So that's
I,
the
I
other thing is that
yeah.
if they can't do that, it's going to be hard for Keegan to come back and win this game. But
Yeah, I think Cincinnati, the ball bounced their way a lot last year. I think the
yep,
ball is not bouncing their way a lot this year.
yep.
And I think Miami is going to steamroll them. Miami's legit.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think
Miami's
Miami
legit, and
is looking very good this year. But
that's
I
why
think
Robbie
that
is going to have a shot to win this whole thing, in my opinion. Because if Miami's going to be legit all
oh,
year, he does. He has a real chance. If Tua and Waddle are going to do the things they're doing, Robbie is going to be a contender. I'm kind of just going to say this. There's a very good chance at the end of this Mary's house the number 2 seed is Robbie, because I just think Miami looks damn good right now. They look damn good. And I don't think Cincinnati looks good. And I think that's the difference for Keegan this year. He really, really was working on that high that Cincinnati had. I think teams are figuring
yeah,
Burrow out a little more. I think Chase is getting, way more attention than he did last year. I think Mixon is good, but he's not. They're just not getting the specific situations they had last year as much.
yep.
So
I agree, but I do think that Cincinnati is going to bust out. They're going to have a high scoring game with Miami.
that's
It's going
fair.
to be a close one between Keegan and Mark, but I think Keegan pulls it out with the Thursday night performance by Mixon and Chase. I think it's going to be like 151 to like 147. Like it's going to be
Yeah,
close.
this for sure is going to be a 130, like 140 game, right? It's going to be like Robert and
Yeah,
Keegan's last week
yeah,
score for sure.
I
I
think so.
agree. I think Justin Jefferson's the big difference here for Mark too. Justin Jefferson struggled the last 2 weeks. So if he
Yep.
can come out and really do well against a strong Marcus Williams cornerback performance, or who's going to be on him the whole game, Mark is going to really blow this out. I don't think this is a butter biscuits game. I think this is going to be close no matter what. I am going to take Mark. I think it's Mark.
All right.
And that's no disrespect to Keegan. Keegan is tremendous.
Yeah.
I just think this
I
matchup
think
looks
like looking
juicier
at
for
his
Mark.
lineup and his bench, he's by far the best team in Mary's house. However, I mean, that doesn't always equate to the wins and losses. So
It doesn't.
if he's unable to, lock down that 1 seed, and like you said, maybe Tua and Waddle walk over the league this year and Robbie just comes out strong, maybe he's able to snipe that 1 seed from Keegan. So, and if he
Sure.
does, like just looking, I mean, and Brian's house hasn't been, you know, 100% all in this year, but just
No,
looking at last week where we go 6-0, I mean, it's still going to be tough for more than 2 teams from Mary's house, I think, to sneak into the playoffs, honestly.
this is a
So,
year where all 6 teams in the playoffs have a shot.
right. Yeah.
This is
I
the
think
year
you're
where
totally right.
seeding will be so important because of there legit could be a 5 seed who is just amazing.
Yeah.
And you don't want to play him as the 2 seed, right? Like
Yeah.
that could be the serious situation. So
Definitely
you want to play the
know
6
what you're
seed, right?
stepping in
So
there. Yep.
um yeah. Nick versus Robert. I mean, for me, this is Butter Biscuits game of the week. 126 to 85 is the matchup. Good luck with Mark Ingram this week,
Hashtag
Nick.
crown climb.
Hashtag crown climb. I just think Nick losing Sterling Shepard's a huge loss for his team. Yeah, I'm going to take Robert by a landslide. There's no even reason for me to
Same.
cover it as far as I'm
We don't
concerned
really
past that.
need to talk about it much. I will say
Yeah.
though, I think some people got a little shocked when I dropped Sterling Shepard earlier this year. This is why. He gets hurt every single year, and I've been dealing with it for the past like 3 years. He's like been my number 2, number 3 wide receiver for the past like 4 years. The guy is so unreliable.
The
He gets
sabotage play.
injured so much. But like when he's healthy, he puts up numbers. But yeah, he just can't do it. So, but I mean, it was a good pickup on Nick's part. Got him a solid couple games, and now he's on IR for the rest of the year. So
There you go. Classic sabotage update.
Yep.
Me and Joey. Must win situation for me to keep pace with what's going on with Brian's house. Also a must win for Joey to keep pace because 2-2 is a lot different for Joey than it is for me right now. And Joey had obviously a really rough week with 108, but the matchups do look favorable for him. A lot of good defenses he's playing against some teams here. What are your thoughts on this, Isaac?
Oh boy, I think this is going to be a close one too. I don't think you guys are going to put up as much numbers as Mark and Keegan, but it's going to be up there. It's going to be 130s. Boy, I'm looking at the matchups here. I think, man, I'm going to take Joey in a very tight match. I'm going to say Joey's going to go. He's got a lot of dudes playing Thursday night too. He's got Hill and Higgins both on Thursday night. So it's going to be a big matchup for the league here. I think that Thursday night Cincinnati.
Yeah, this
Miami
Thursday night
matchup.
game is completely the opposite of last week's Thursday night game.
Yeah, right.
Like it is a must-watch game. It's going to be great. Going to be a great game.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take Joey in an edge, like we'll say like 133 to like 130. Like this is gonna be another tight one,
Yeah,
I think, and you're barely gonna get edged out by Joey.
I didn't
And
talk about them.
hey, I want you to win this game, Max. Okay, I would much rather see you.
No, you're
beat
being
Joey
analytical.
than the
You're
other
approaching
way
it the
around.
correct way, right?
I'm an analytics guy. I'm
He's
just
an
looking
analytics
at
guy.
the numbers. So
He's looking at the numbers. Joey and I are 4-4 all time against each other. Robert and Nick didn't talk about that. Robert and Nick are dead tied 3-3-1. Yes, there was a tie year 1 with Austin and Robert. That's dating back to that game. 3-3-1. 3-3-1 dating back to the Austin Ellis regime. Robbie versus Elliott. This on paper appears to be the closest game of the week, 110 to 108. Thoughts on this?
Man, here we go again. We're coming down to that Thursday night game. He's got Tua and Waddle. If I already said that, is I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I don't think this is going to be as close as the projections say. I mean, Robbie had a rough week last week, and Tua really wasn't able to put up the numbers that he had the previous week. But I think this is a comeback week for him. I think this is I don't think this will be Butter Biscuits game because that Robbie Nick one is going to be a tough one to overcome for Butter Biscuits. But I think Robbie wins this one in a landslide. I don't have much faith in Elliott's starting roster to put up large numbers. So I'm gonna say Robbie gets we'll say he gets 125, and then we'll stick kind of close to the projections for Elliott. He'll get like 105, and
He's
it won't be
playing
too much.
Madison, but apparently Cook is fine. So that's something to monitor for Robbie. Conklin has been just lights out as a tight end, but he's playing Pittsburgh.
Yep, and
Jacksonville ain't no
another
slouch right now either. Jacksonville's
right.
playing some good football right now. So
They
I'm
are.
just
They
interested
are.
to see how do the Eagles do it? Like we're gonna find out what the Jaguars are this year. Are they legit
Mhm.
or not?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but Elliott's playing some dogs too. I mean, like
Right.
I think Geno Smith has been impressive. I'll leave it at that. I think Geno Smith has done better than I thought he would do. Lockett
Yeah,
playing against
that's
a
fair.
soft Detroit team and Jamal Williams playing against Seattle. He's going to start, as well as Patterson against Cleveland. I think this is going to be close. I am going to take Robbie. I'm just making a point that this is much closer than I think it needs to be. Madison is going to be something to watch for Robbie.
Yeah. And is in his other just quick note on his other running back here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I feel like quietly has been I think he's the number 4. Let's look at him here. Yeah, he's the number 4 RB
Yeah,
overall,
through 3 weeks, right?
like through 3 weeks. And they have him only listed for 11 because he's up against a pretty decent Tampa Bay defense, but I think he's going to score more than 11 for sure. I think he is doing really well this year, and I feel like they're finally utilizing him the way that they should. That the past couple of years, I feel like they haven't really done a great job of utilizing him to his full potential. So
Yeah, I mean, good.
I think he's
The
going to be
ball's
really
bouncing
good.
for Robbie. The ball is
Yeah.
bouncing Robbie's way this season, and that's a
Hmm.
good thing for him.
Yep. And just think, like, if we get a Keegan loss, I think this game Robbie has a very good chance of
And then
winning
he's
this
in
game.
control.
Yeah, he's in control. He's in the number 1 spot in Mary's house. So
Yeah, and then he can go fight for a 1 seed.
there you go.
Isaac versus Zach. This is another tight. I mean, these are really, really tight matchups that I do agree with on projections, except for Mark. I think Mark is going to do way better than his projections are saying. This is a close matchup. This is going to come down to can Mahomes outperform Lamar? Because Barkley will do his. Edmonds is going to struggle, I think, against Cincinnati. We're going to see more throwing in that game, as will Sanders. So then it comes down to receivers, really. Receivers and tight end, uh, all over the board. George Kittle plays Monday night for you. I think it will come down to that score, depending on your game. Oh man, this one's really hard.
This
I'm
is a
going to
tight one,
take,
dude. Yeah, I
I
think this
am,
is
this
going
is
to
a
be a
tight
good
week,
matchup.
really, really good week. I'm going to take Isaac by 5. I'm going to say bonus time touchdown for George Kittle. Bonus
Yes,
time.
bonus
I'm going to
time.
call my shot
I'm
now.
all in on the bonus time this year.
120 to 115. And then finally, they're still in the league game. Jordan versus Zane, a combined 1-5.
Woof, woof.
Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. Is this the most important win of the season for Jordan? Like this is a must-win game for both of these guys.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, you mentioned last week, like, between Zane and I, that it was a must win for Zane because to come back from 0-3 for Zane is going to be difficult.
Yes.
If he goes further into the hole at 0-4, man, he's got to be the favorite along with Nick for the buttered biscuits at that point, being 0-4.
Yeah.
Um, Jardine, again, we've already talked about how bad Jardine's team is, but he somehow manages to put wins up on the board. So, you know what? Like, this is a do or die for Zane. I think it still is for Jardine too, but Jardine long term is has shot himself in the foot.
I think analytically, this is worse for Zane to lose.
Yeah.
I think feelings wise, this would be worse for Jordan to lose.
Right. I think regardless of how this season ends for Jordan, his team is in trouble. Like if he somehow manages to scrape out of doing, like he gets like out of the first round of the banana playoffs or whatever, I think long term his team is in trouble. Like I think it's relatively similar for Zane. He's not as much trouble as Jordan for sure. So this is a bad week for Zane if he loses. Like he is going to be the front runner for Banana Bowl.
Jordan's 8-2 against Zane all time.
Wow.
17% of his wins all time have come against Zane. This has the feeling to me of a Jordan win. I'm going to take Zane in the upset for the bit.
Love it.
Actually, I'm going to double down.
Jump on that train. Like,
hey, I'm going to double down, Isaac.
That storyline.
Isaac, are you ready? I'm going to double down.
I'm ready.
Nick is going to outperform his roster. Jordan will be the Buttered Biscuits #Crown Climb loser of the week.
Wow. You think
I'm taking Zane to butter Jordan's biscuits? Zane
biscuits?
Yes, Zane will outperform. Wow. Zane will put up 130.
Wow.
Give me Zane.
You're thinking that Jardine is going to severely underperform to get that crown climb, right?
Because
I don't know if Zane can score enough points to butter somebody's biscuits at this point. If they put up the numbers,
Robbie, it's just I believe. Sorry, Isaac.
Robbie. Wow. Okay.
I apologize.
I mean, I'm not actually offended.
No, you should be offended. That's. Yeah. It's better than calling you Mark. Am I right?
I'd be in much better shape than I am right now. So.
Isaac, rebellions are built on hope. And if I look down the line, every single player on Zane's team is named Hope. Every single one.
Every single one.
So I'm looking at Jordan's roster. I'm not seeing any of his players named Hope.
There's no hope. There's no hope.
It's the hope versus no hope game. There's no hope on Jordan's team.
That's incredible.
That is a great bit. Zane with the rally.
I think Zane's going to win just because he did this bit. I think he is going to win solely because he named his team Rebellion Built on Hope, and every single player on his team is Hope.
Is named Hope. Yeah.
I think
and Jordan has no hope
this week.
My favorite part is that Jordan has zero hope. That's the best part of it.
Hope. Yeah, exactly. No hope.
Not one bit of hope. Whatsoever. Not one bit.
Not one single shining ray of hope on Jordan's
Chef's kiss. Isaac, to close out the show, we're closing in on an hour. Wow. Lucky our league. Lucky our league. Who do you have in the championship and the Banana Bowl game right now as of today?
Right now, as of today, and as of next week with Zane beating Jordan, it's going to be Jordan and Nick in the Banana Bowl. I think honestly, Jardine has such a good chance at losing. I'm going to say Jardine. I'm going to say Jardine is going to be doing the blended. Yay! Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
That's going to be like the best watching the punishment of the entire Banana
league. For
like,
sure. Of the 7 we've done, that's good. Of the 6 of up to this point we've done 6. That would be the 7th. That will be the best.
Cannot wait. I still think Keegan has a shot at being the number 1. He's the best team in Mary's league. He's going to get that 1 seed. I don't know if that's going to be enough to bring him to the championship, though. We'll find out. I think it's going to be Robert in the playoff or in the championship for sure. That second team is I'm still like trying to decide who that's going to be at this point. It might be Mark. Honestly, he's Team Spooky. He's got my daughter is saying hi. He's got a tough roster. I think it's going to be Robert and Mark in the championship. I'm going to take Robert. His team just looks the best at this point. It's hard to go against and root for anybody else with his roster.
Sure.
So he does. I mean, we've mentioned in previous, he's got probably a weaker roster this year than he has in weeks previous. His running back situation isn't like fluid 100%, but I think still he probably has the most solid roster out of the Banana League. So I'm going to take Robert. He's finally going to overcome, all of the shortcomings and the choking that he has experienced in years past, and he's going to make it and win the championship. Hi. Yes, it's
rainbow. It's purple and red.
So there you go. Robert.
It's like listening to Zane talk to Jordan about their game this week. Dad.
Yep.
Daddy.
There it is.
There you go. Well, there you go. There's your predictions. And thank you to Infinity Bro Isaac. You can check him out on the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced as all things should be. That is your week 4 lineups. Don't forget to get your lineup set ahead for Thursday. And then the Minnesota Vikings take on the New Orleans Saints at 8:30 a.m. on Sunday.